All right, we might as well make a start. Thank you, everyone. It's 3:30, trying something different this year with an earlier AGM. Thanks, staff, for turning up, and welcome to the 2022 ACM. Being now that we are CEWA Limited, we no longer have AGMs. They're reserved for boards. Now we have a school advisory council and a PNF committee group. We now have the one board, which is the bishops. They have the AGM, so we are now having annual community meetings. So just to give you a bit of a breakdown of today, Mr. Tony Summers he's going to welcome when he gets onto his part. I'll do an acknowledgement of country and prayer, a couple of apologies from Father Derek and Javita from the School Advisory Council. We'll pass some minutes and then move into the two different meetings, the School Advisory Council meeting followed by the PNF. You'll notice there is a QR code that includes staff. If you could scan it and fill out the QR code, that's just for your formal attendance. But I'll just hand over to Mr. Summers to welcome us today and sort of introduce me for prayer and acknowledgement of country.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming. It's interesting to try this different time of the day to have the meeting, and hopefully it is so good to see so many faces out there. I work across the road, and in our annual general meeting, we get about 5 people. Which is a little bit awkward, a little bit embarrassing. Well, I wouldn't know because I've never been, so there you go. It says it all. But thank you so much for coming. We will make it as painless as possible, and I will hand you back now to Jason for prayer and acknowledgement of country.
All right, may we acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Noongar people, and pay our respects to the elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and the hope of their people. And just to take you into prayer today, we are in the Noongar season of Kambarang, which you may have seen out on our new mural that's been painted out on the basketball courts. During this season, we see an abundance of colours and flowers. It's known as second spring and finishes at the end of this month. The yellows of the acacias continue to abound, along with some of the banksias and other small flowers. For the animals, October is the most likely time of year that you'll encounter a snake as the reptiles start to awaken from their hibernation and look to make the most of the warm weather to assist them in getting enough energy for food. You'll also see kulbadis, magpies, which will be out protecting their nests and babies, and hopefully no one suffered a swooping so far this season. We're about to head into Birak, which is the hottest season of the year, beginning in December, and the driest as well. So the reading today is from Ecclesiastes, and it is centered around the seasons and change. And it starts by saying there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I've seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. So we can make the sign of the cross as I lead you through prayer in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, just when we settle into a pattern, things change far too quickly. One door opens, another closes. We rise, we eat, we sleep. We smile, we laugh, we cry. Change itself is ever changing. And Lord, if I'm truthful, I don't like change because I desire the control. Will you forgive my lack of understanding that your creation and seasons is exquisite? Would you remind me that the ebb and flow of life is rippled by the gifts of love and laughter, and that life is measured by memories, not minutes. May the season of change fuel me forward to another beautiful season of the blessing of your almighty hand. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. I'll hand back to Tony for the minutes of 2021.
Thank you, Jason. Okay. Oh, yes. Has anyone had a chance to read through the minutes of our meeting last year? And if so, would they like to propose them as a true and accurate record of our meeting? Thank you, Janelle, and thank you, Jeff. Okay, it is with the greatest of pleasure that I once again have the opportunity to present the annual report for 2022 on behalf of the whole school community of St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Primary School. Janelle Prunster, Vice Chairperson, Craig Grantham, Finance Officer, Laura Hampson, Secretary, Stephanie Kunder, our P&F Rep, Jacinta Linton, Javita Nilsson, and Father Darrick joined the school's leadership group to begin the year in February. And as always, there is something new to appreciate at the beginning of each new school year, and 2022 has been no different. With the assistance of Mark Hughes, additional shading was added to the school grounds, primarily in the senior nature play area and the prayer garden, recognizing the importance of the safety and comfort of all our children and staff. Further access to some of our buildings, providing additional space for the psychologist and music tutors, was also facilitated. A range of instrumental tuition is now available, including acoustic and electric guitars, keyboards, and drums. And we welcome 25 new families to our community, which is a wonderful endorsement of our marketing strategies and our ever-growing reputation. COVID did have an impact, an inevitable impact at the beginning of the year, with our first recorded cases amongst the community. However, sensible protocols were implemented which minimized the disruptions and prevented further whole school closures. And despite isolations and class shutdowns, well-managed processes allowed the education and learning of all unaffected students to continue. It's been another eventful year with the undertaking of 2 significant and overlapping reviews in June, focusing upon several aspects of school processes. SEWA appointed leaders carried out a cyclic review of school procedures, examining the learning opportunities and experiences afforded to all members of the St. Francis of Assisi community. As part of this process, which took place over 4 days at the end of semester 1, our school's improvement processes were investigated, which included the gathering of extensive data and feedback from staff, students, parents, school advisory council members, and P&F members. Jason himself was a major focus within this review period. As is the case with any new principal in his 3rd year of leadership, formal evaluative procedures are conducted to establish the performance of the incumbent. The audit was extremely thorough. Initial surveys were followed up with formal panel interviews. Several members of the School Advisory Council were invited to participate in one such interview to shed light on Jason's leadership, particularly regarding the community pillar of Catholic education. Feedback from all stakeholders has been extremely positive and encouraging, such that Jason has been afforded a further 5-year contract as principal at our school, and I am confident that all stakeholders are delighted with this outcome. Well done, Jason. Thank you. As always, our children were thoroughly prepared for all sacraments throughout the year. Reconciliation, First Eucharist in June, and Confirmation in September. As highlighted last year, the parish and schools continue to adopt a more personal and collaborative approach to the Catholic identity pillar, taking responsibility for a specific feast day Mass. St. Francis coordinated and prepared the Mayflower Mass in May to acknowledge the significant role that our Mother Mary has played throughout the life of the Church. The Sunday morning Mass was followed by a sausage sizzle event provided by St. Francis for the St. Andrew's community. We also continue to contribute towards church ministries, providing an additional 5 new altar servers to their pool, with more on the way, whilst the leadership group maintain representation at monthly parish pastoral meetings, council meetings, further cementing the relationship between school and parish. And we are building positive relationships with Iron McCormick Catholic College with the exchange of student visits between the schools. That's occurred throughout the year, including reading clubs, cheerleading workshops, and cooking classes. In order to facilitate the transition to high school, Year 6 students will have access to lockers from next term, alongside upgraded desks. And we await the first yield of crops from the recently established sustainable gardens, an opportunity for our students to develop their entrepreneurial skills. With the removal of COVID restrictions to baseline settings, we have once again embraced the involvement of parents on school grounds and the return of events such as whole school gatherings, assemblies, and masses. And on behalf of the whole school community, I would like to thank the PNF for their tireless efforts throughout the year regarding this matter. A leadership group can only function with the support of a hard-working and dedicated staff body, and St. Francis of Assisi boasts one of the best. Our children are in the very safe and accomplished hands of gifted teaching and non-teaching professionals who continue to provide meaningful learning and enrichment opportunities on a daily basis. As parents and as a grandparent, we can rest assured that their future is receiving the best of foundations, and on behalf of the School Advisory Council, I do thank you all. So, as 2022 concludes, we look forward to further developments, both inside and outside of the classrooms. A major project for 2023 will be the installation of a shade structure encompassing additional sails, which will provide a much needed and a more comfortable environment throughout the few remaining exposed area, which is destined for the space between the years 1 and 2 blocks, and the years 3 and 4 blocks is already underway, and we anticipate that it will be completed by April next year. I am confident, you're going to like this, I'm confident that the 10% reduction in school fees announced at our last meeting will provide welcome relief in 2023, especially considering the current climate of financial challenges, and also the implementation of a significantly reduced IT levy following a revised bring your own device iPad model will also assist when budgeting next year. As for now, I would like to wish you and your families a very happy, safe, and blessed Christmas and a peaceful New Year. I thank you once again for your attendance this afternoon and for your continued support of our exceptional school community. Thank you. Okay, I'll now hand over to Craig, who will give us a rundown on our current financial situation.
Thanks, Tony. My name is Craig Grantham. I'm a parent on the School Advisory Council in the capacity of Treasurer. I've got a few things to go through in terms of our income, expenditure, and budget as well for next year. I understand it's not an exciting topic, but we'll get through it reasonably quickly, and we've got some good news to start with. So in 2023, there will be a 10% decrease to tuition fees. This is roughly a decrease of approximately $140 annually per child across tuition, building levy, resources, excursions, and IT levy. In 2023, the Australian government has increased the federal funding for Catholic schools. Therefore, to reduce the cost of living pressures, we have reduced our fees by 10%. The building levy remains calculated at 20% of the tuition fee. The levy is used to pay our low-interest loan repayments. The resource levy is used to purchase photocopying paper, Minilit, Initialit, English Stars, Pat Maths, RAS, Literacy, and Numeracy resources. In 2023, the IT levy has been adjusted for the Year 4 cohort to support the new Bring Your Own Device iPad program. The fee for Kindy to Year 3 is $97 per student, and Year 5 to 6 is $200 per student. Year 4 will bring their own device, and the levy for them is $70. On the screen here, we've got the new school fee structure for 2023. I won't go the full detail here today, but this will be coming home early next week with the students and will soon be available on the website to view as well. Okay, but this is where our 10% reduction comes into play for fees next year. Income sources for the school in 2023, so the budget for next year. In Commonwealth grants, we've got 68% of our income in Commonwealth grants, 18% in state government grants, 1% in special grants, 12% in school fees, and 1% from other income. So you can see our Commonwealth grants up there, 14%, and that's where it's been passed on in tuition fee discounts. Summary for 2022, year to date until the 31st of October. Won't go through all of the individual amounts there, but we've got out of the budgeted operations, we have recurrent income, capital income, giving a total income result of 4,328,515. And then in the expenditure, we have recurrent and capital expenditure, amounts before amortization and depreciation, and that's total there at a surplus of $16,736. Back to our 2023 budget. We're expecting income from the Commonwealth and other grants, state government grants, school fees, and other income and levies to total $5,860,303. And expenditure for next year, mostly there on salaries and on costs, curriculum departmental, finance, operating leases, admin and general expenses, maintenance and utilities totaling $5,240,121. Gives a surplus at the end of $103,522 once those expenditures have been taken off. And that's it from me.
Just to echo what Tony was saying before I add my report, just thank you to the School Advisory Council members in 2022. So we have a list of the people up on the screen there. Tony has served as chairperson, Janelle as vice chair, Craig as treasurer, and Laura Hampson as secretary. Stephanie has been our PNF rep. Jacinta Linton and Javita Nielsen have been members, with Father Darius as the parish priest and myself. Thanks also to Jeff and Dee, who've come along and supported all our School Advisory Council meetings. So there are no positions for next year available, so the School Advisory Council will continue in 2023. My report, I won't bore you all with a word-by-word reflection on my report. What I just want to talk about in bullet point is just some of our achievements over the last 12 months. Everything we do, and as Tony talked about in terms of our school improvement journey, is measured by our Quality Catholic Education Framework. So our 4 pillars of Catholic identity, education, community and stewardship. And our role as leaders in this school is to develop those amongst our community and bring along everyone on that journey whilst continually looking at that bottom line, which is about review and improvement. So if we look back over 2022, I think there's been some significant achievements. It feels like a long time ago, COVID, but it was only in term 1 and term 2 where WA really experienced the severe effects of school closures. And I think at one point we had 6 or 8 classes being isolated. I was playing a role of contact tracer and WA health representative, probably poorly, but we did manage to navigate those couple of terms with a lot of staff missing. I think at last count, we're probably down to half a dozen staff yet to experience COVID, but we did a great job, I think, as a school staff and a community of sort of, and I know parents, you put a lot of faith and trust in the decisions, I guess, we were making as a leadership team. We were being sort of guided by WA Health, and I know that was hard, and there was a lot of information out there, but I think it was a real credit to the whole community, not just the staff, but the parents, the kids, the way they responded and how we navigated that period of time. It's been nice to sort of return to a semi-normal in the last couple of terms, and we've seen some real strong academic progress in literacy and numeracy. As Tony mentioned, we had our Quality Catholic Education School Review and obviously my review of leadership. And we also managed to do our National School Improvement Survey, where we had over 100 families respond to some information about our students, our staff, our parents, and we had different stakeholders come together to sort of, again, as another data gathering tool. And as Tony mentioned, that partnership with RMCC has continued to grow. Our instrumental program's taken off, and we are looking at continual facility upgrades. So just going through a few of those, in COVID disruptions, term 1 and 2, obviously isolated classrooms, individuals, contact tracing. Really the key for us, and I think what stands out about our Catholic school communities is how well we provided pastoral care for our students. We were all operating in very uncertain cloudy times in what was ahead. And I think we navigated that as best we could. We try to provide clear communication. And I think that's been some of the feedback that's come back from families, that they felt the staff and the school were really clear in the communication and tried to provide one point of truth, I guess. In the literacy area, during that time, we've still had a focus on our guided reading and having a consistent framework across the school. And in the numeracy area, our number talks with our numeracy team have been led really well this year. So if we look at literacy in terms of our successes, so we look at a range of standardised testing, NAPLAN for our year 3s and 5s, and we use what's called PAT assessment, progressive assessment testing for our rest of our schools. So everyone in year 1s to 6s sit the PAT tests in reading, grammar. I think in the juniors they do maths as well, and that gives us our baseline data for somewhere to set targets each year. And you can see across NAPLAN, and especially NAPLAN, there was some really great growth for our year 5s, and also across the school in our PAT testing. So year 5 achieved our Catholic school improvement targets for both the mean score and their band target, with some steady growth over the past 3 years. In NAPLAN, our results indicate year 3 students with a language background other than English. So we have about 35% of our population is a language background other than English. The growth of those children has been in line with the Catholic education growth across the whole system. So I think it's a real tick in that column for how we support children with a background other than English. Our year 6s achieved above the norm medium score in our PAT testing, and our year 5s are only 3% below. And year 2s and 4s, less than 2%. And that's all in just the area of literacy. So thank you to Mrs. Bowden, who's prepared a lot of this data for us. In numeracy, we've had a whole school approach led by Mr. Clark this year. He's taken over the literacy team. And a few of the things we're focused on is integrating judging standards into our assessment and the new Westwood testing. Our number talks, which is all focusing on mathematical thinking, the explanation, reasoning, has been something that's been a focus in the second half of the year. And I think on average, and I think this is why numeracy has become such a focus for us, our year 1 to 5 children are on average around about 20% below our expected targets in the progressive assessment testing. So we really are looking at how do we move our children forward in numeracy, because we seem to be getting some traction in literacy. So as I said, there's lots of room for improvement, and I think that'll be the journey we go on next year with a hopefully an uninterrupted year. And as I said before, thinking, reasoning, explanations, and some concrete materials on engaging our children in maths. What else has happened in 2022? Our National School Improvement Survey. We had some really positive feedback from our parents. As I said, there was over 100 parents out of our 300 families that filled out the survey. They rated the school as a 4.7 out of 5 for being a welcoming school, and 91%, so 91 out of those 105 respondents would strongly recommend our school. From our students, they believe teacher support. So in our students, they do surveys in the juniors, the middles, and the uppers, and they believe they rate teacher support at 4.71 out of 5 and expectations for success at 4.3 out of 5, which is really a big improvement on what we did in 2019. So this survey is conducted every 2 years, and it generally forms the catalyst for what then we focus on. We have our progressive achievement testing and our NAPLAN testing for the academic stuff, and then in our school improvement survey, it's another data tool that we can say, here's what parents want to see in the school, here's what kids want to see in the school. And in 2019, a few items were identified, and we've spent a couple of years working on those, and I think we've seen some real growth and progress for all stakeholders. And as you can see, sorry, that should say staff on the bottom, not students. Job satisfaction increased in 2019 from 4.03 out of 5 to 4.36. 100% of staff almost always or often feel proud of their work at SFOA. So really encouraging to know that people are really proud of the work they do here and feel a sense of satisfaction. And there's been a dramatic increase in staff feeling they have the capacity to manage disruptions. And there's been a lot of work around that in the last couple of years. And that's a credit to the staff and the strategies they've taken on, and also those people leading those spaces. The other data source we had, as Tony mentioned, was the Quality Catholic Education School Review. Some points that came out, this is all available on our website: a strong culture of staff learning, distributed leadership. There's a real evident focus on student voice and empowering our students. Our kids feel like they are safe. Our kids feel like if they aren't sure, they know who to go to and get support. And our kids feel our kids know what's expected of them as how they treat each other, but they also know what's expected of how the teachers should be treating them and what language is appropriate, what relationships should be happening in the classrooms. So they feel they're heard and they feel they're safe. Parents, as I said, have felt well informed and clarity of communication is apparent. And there's a strong collegial community atmosphere. And the teaching and learning is reflective of a whole school approach, which is a positive thing. So what are the things that came out? So we've set some priorities for next year based around those 4 pillars. In Catholic identity, it's engaging our community in further opportunities for faith development, embedding our charism. In education, it's our numeracy approach and having a whole school consistent approach for numeracy, and reviewing our assessment approach and aligning our literacy data for student progress. So some of that came through the support the PNF have offered with our decodables. One of the things that did come out in all the stakeholders from the school improvement survey, from both staff, parents and children, was just a cultural awareness around celebrating how diverse our community is. We have 40 odd different nationalities, 35% language background other than English. How do we celebrate that in our school? How do we acknowledge those communities and those contributions to our school? So that's been a focus, will be a focus moving forward. And our student code of conduct. Our students wrote a code of conduct 2 years ago, the year 4, 5s and 6s, with the leadership of Mrs. Bowden and a couple of others, Mrs. Ford. And they came up with 5 things that they want to feel while they're at school. So safe, happy, included, cared for, and welcome. I know them off by heart. Staff are learning them. Students will be learning them. So over the next 12 months, it's really how do we embed that? So at the end of 23, we sit up here and every staff member can say, these are the 5 things our kids want to feel when they're at school. And it's what does that look like in the class? These are the 5 things our children want to feel at school and they know them. And what does it look like? And in the area of stewardship, one of the points that came out of our Quality Catholic Education School Review was we spent a lot of time building staff capacity of teaching staff in the classroom, but growth and development isn't isolated to just teachers. It includes our groundsmen, our administration staff, our education assistants, and what that process looks like. One of our mandates in Catholic education is we ask our kids to grow and develop. We need to ask our staff to do the same. And I think we've done that well with our teaching staff, and there's some room for improvement to do that with our education and support staff as well. And as Tony mentioned, lots of facilities. So hopefully you'll come back next year to see a few changes in some of the upper classrooms, and we'll slowly build our shade structure. So lots of exciting things happening next year. We'll be busy as it is every year, but hopefully we have one less challenge to navigate in COVID. And all of our Catholic School Improvement Plan and what that looks like will be available on our website by the end of this week. The part I will read very briefly is just my thanks. I know it's been a tumultuous year, I guess, and we only get through these types of challenges with the support, as Tony said, of a collective group. And I think those 5 stakeholders, and if you don't include the student, those 5 stakeholders play a huge part in the success of our kids and just how happy they feel at school and their progress. And so just to the School Advisory Council, we started the year using Teams, I believe. Was at the start of this year, we started using Teams, and that it's been outstanding to work with, as I said, Tony as chair, Craig as treasurer, Janelle as vice chair, Laura as secretary, and our other members. It's been amazing this year. They've been really supportive of all the decisions we've made, and I think the feedback that's coming from our reviews is largely in part to the work the School Advisory Council does in supporting the leadership team and our staff. So thank you to all of those for your contributions this year. Also to Dee and Jeff, I know they get dragged along to these School Advisory Councils. They're not kicking and screaming, but I'm sure they are on the inside. And they give up their times on the Wednesday nights to support me and support the council in making sure we're all on the same page. To the PNF, to Stephanie as president, Tegan vice president, Heidi as treasurer, and Tammy as secretary. I know Tammy's finishing up this year. Just thank you for all of your support this year. We've still managed to have lunch orders, Mother's Day, Father's Day, cake stalls, discos, colour runs, community lunches, and there's plenty more. And as I say every year, the feel of the school and the feel of that community that we have is a large thanks to you and your time. I know people don't see how much time goes into it, but the executive spends a lot of time preparing. And to all the other parents who have supported the PNF this year, I know most of them are here today. Thank you for everything that you've done. The big one and the big ticket item, which they'll talk about, is our new Aboriginal mural, which, if you haven't seen it, looks amazing out there on the basketball courts. And a special mention to Emma, who's no longer with us, but was really instrumental in getting this project up and running. So thank you to Emma. In 2023, or in 2022, the PNF Terms of Reference document under CEWA means that the PNF is no longer an executive, it's a committee, because we now are a company, CEWA Limited. So those roles will be reappointed beginning tonight for the start of next year. To the parents who are here and the parents who have supported us throughout the year, thank you very much for entrusting us with your children. We don't always get everything right. We do wake up every morning, though, thinking, how do we make this the best possible place for your children? And every decision I make, every conversation I have with every staff member is about how do we provide opportunities for your kids and how do we make this a wonderful school to come to for your children. So thank you for your support, whether that's at PNF, running club or fundraising, or just getting your kids on time here and coming to your school interviews. We really appreciate it. For your fundraising efforts and your generosity, thank you. And thank you for your trust in our school and in our staff. We really want the best for your kids, and I know we're all on the same page when it comes to that. To Father Derek and Father Marion, there's apologies tonight. They've got their finance committee meeting. A big vote of thanks from us. They are, you wouldn't believe, when you work in some schools, parish priests can be tricky to partner with because they have a certain way of wanting to do things, but with both Father Derek and Father Marion, they are the most laid-back, easygoing parish priests I've come across, who always smile and sort of just say, yeah, let's just go with the flow. So we're really, really proud to be working along with them and thank them for everything they've done for our community this year through a really tricky time. Last but not least, staff. I say it and I say thank you for what you're doing, and it probably doesn't come across as, as sincere as it should. I know that we don't get what we get done without you turning up every day and, again, putting the kids at the forefront of everything you do. We've had a really tricky year. We've had a lot of staff turnover, and we're not immune to it. I know I speak to plenty of principals who are in the same boat. Teaching, like nursing, like being in fireys or police, is a very, very demanding job, and I can't thank you enough for your commitment to our school and our community. We've seen some new staff turn up this year with Miss Walton, Miss Cruz, Miss Croonett. We've welcomed back Mrs. Rossi to our staff and Mrs. Coker as our science teacher. And next year, we'll also welcome a new Year 1 teacher to our early childhood team, Miss GS, Miss Julia Smith. It is a really challenging profession, but I know it provides a lot of satisfaction. And if it didn't, I know a lot of people wouldn't be doing it. The investment and energy from staff this year and last year with COVID, I think, has been like nothing before. The classroom has never been a safer place, I guess, given all the challenges. And I just want to thank everyone from classroom teachers, education assistants, specialists, admin staff, groundsmen, social workers, librarians, volunteers. It does take a collective effort to get through another school year, and the light is very, very close at the end of the tunnel. I say it every year. Every year you're expected to do more stuff, and every year you're expected to take on another challenge. This year it's been remote learning. The last 2 years been remote learning, and you wouldn't do it if you didn't love it. So thank you. To Jeff D, as part of the formal leadership team, we have an extended leadership team, so thank you to all of those people, but especially Jeff and Dee. They've had to sort of weather the storm while I sit in my big office and watch the basketball, but that's not what happens, despite what your kids tell you. But like the staff, they've been challenged this year like never before, and I think they've carried out the workload, just smiling, jumping in as kindy teachers, phys ed teachers. They've been groundsmen. They've filled up sanitizer. They've driven golf carts around, which I'm pretty sure Jeff enjoys. But really just the way they've supported me and supported the whole community has been fantastic. And I can't express how I couldn't survive all the stress without them checking in and saying, how you going? What do you need done? Because they really do get it. They know it's not easy, but they also know it's not easy for classroom teachers. I think it's important to read this part, so I really do mean it. Through all the disruptions, never once have we wavered from my mantra and our staff mantra, which is being Christ-centered and child-focused. every decision, every action, every event, every experience that's taken place in and out of the classroom has always placed your children at the centre. To be able to say that, that makes me really proud of our parents and our kids. I'm really privileged to be in the position of principal, but my job's probably the easy part. The heavy lifting has been done by the staff and the parents and the kids around the community. So thank you, everyone. And I know I sat here last year and said I'm going to have a decal up the top, and I sit here saying we did the fastest ACM speech has ever gone for me. So thanks, everybody. Thank you to all the specialist teachers. They all put in a piece to our principals report. It says principals report, but there's a 20-page report that'll go on the website. If you want to read it word for word, feel free. Now, the important one, before I hand back to Tony, just for staffing for next year, I know parents are always excited to find out who's staffing where. So hopefully none of the staff are surprised by this. So next year, we've got our staffing. So kindy will remain exactly the same as it is this year, with Mrs. Ridley and Mrs. Kavanagh in KW and KB respectively, with Mrs. Porter-Rudd in KW and Mrs. Nanovich and Mrs. Taylor in KB. In pre-primary, it will also remain exactly the same. So Mrs. Swinney and Mrs. Ward with their education assistants, Mrs. Kerr and Mrs. Carroll. In year one, as I mentioned, Grace is our new year one teacher. She's joining us from St. Denis in Jundana. She's currently the year two teacher there at St. Denis, and she's coming over to join our staff. She does have a few connections in the staff, which is handy for her. She'll be partnered by Mrs. Simon in year one next year, and Mrs. Ganaway will support the year one cohort. In year two, Mrs. Rossi and Miss Walton will go up with our year one children from this year. That's a deliberate, we know it's been disruptive, and as I said, every decision I make is about what's best for the kids. You may not always think that, but from my heart, that's where that decision comes from. Miss Walton and Mrs. Rossi came in to pick up the year ones this year in term 4 and really made sure they had a smooth transition to finish the year. It made sense to ensure they carried on with those kids next year. So our year ones will have that familiarity with both teachers as they start year 2, with Mrs. Gore supporting them as well. In year 3, Mrs. Cruz and Mr. Kinder will continue in those classrooms. In year 4, Mrs. Elliott will be partnered with Mrs. Hunt, and Miss Hamilton will again pick up a Thursday. Year 5, Mrs. Bond and Miss Kay, who's in year 2W at the moment, will be moving to partner Mrs. Bond in year 5. And Mr. Gorman, who again stepped in after we had a change of teachers halfway through the year, has absolutely led that year 6 cohort along with the support of Mrs. Freeman, and Mr. Clark will pick up a day on the Thursday. So that will be your camp team for year 6. Phys Ed, Miss Hamilton, Mrs. Coker will continue in the science role, Mr. C in music, Mrs. M in drama. She is gleefully pregnant and finishing up very early next year, possibly coming back from 4 or 5 weeks. So Mrs. Kinder has accepted the role of drama teacher for next year, and she will be handing over from the start of the year. So she'll be at the start of next year. We also have a new Italian teacher. So Signora McDonald, Signora McDonald is taking long service leave for the first 6 months. And while she's on long service, Signora Mignonia, is that how you say it? She says like a filet mignon, but Mignonia. So I said, okay, I can remember that. A filet mignonia. So she's actually the Italian teacher at St. Kieran's at the moment, and she's there full time. So she's coming to pick up 2 days a week here, and will be having a handover. So that's exciting, and I'm sure the kids will be excited. Mrs. Bowden will continue as our student support coordinator and literacy. Miss Campbell, Mrs. McBride, and Mr. Clark will look after our numeracy support in those year levels. Mrs. Baker will continue with student support. She'll be in class Monday to Wednesday in 2B, and then doing student support on Thursday, Friday. Mrs. Miller will be doing student support Monday to Wednesday with the older children, while Mr. Carroll will be picking up the Thursday, Friday in 2B, and Mrs. Hubkova will be student support from Monday to Thursday. Mrs. Howell will continue as our MacLit coordinator from year 3s to 6, as well as our library. And you may not know, but Mrs. Fenlon has accepted a full-time teaching position in Our Lady of Grace. So she won't be doing our higher order thinking skills group. Mrs. Evans, who's on maternity leave, will be returning in term 2 to pick up some IT. And then from semester 2 onwards, we'll pick up the higher order thinking skills group with the robotics. And our social worker, Mrs. Ford, will continue, Miss Ford, sorry, will continue on just the Tuesdays and Thursdays next year. So it'll just be full Tuesdays and full Thursdays. Our exceptional grounds team will continue as is. And as I said, Miss Evans. And not to mention the most important people of the school, and that's not me, Dee, or Jeff. That's probably Mrs. Brunton at the front office will continue with enrolments and also the face of the school. Mrs. Gore will support her in the afternoons. Mrs. Bastian as finance officer, and Dee and Jeff supporting classroom time as well as being the assistant principals. And that wraps it up for the staffing. That will be available on the school website as well. This whole PowerPoint presentation and this report will be available on the school website by Friday. So if you want to check who the class teachers are, you can have a look and then match up their face with the photos on the other part of the website, which they'll be wrapped with. All right, I'll hand back to Tony to conclude the ACM and then hand over to PNF.
Okay, again, guys, thank you for coming this afternoon. We've got a lovely day finally for the Australian summer. It's here. I will now hand over to Stephanie, who will do the PNF report.
Hello, everyone. The PNF has had a wonderful year, and I would like to thank the parents and staff for the support and contributions. This year started off with some COVID restrictions that led to the cancellation of our family fun night and first term fish and chips community lunch. While we were not able to gather in term 1, we were able to reschedule the activities from family fun night on the last day of school for the students to enjoy. During the school year, we held the following events to raise money and give back to the community: cake stall, pizza lunches, Scholastic Book Club, Mother's Day stall, free disco, color-a-thon, Subway lunches, sushi lunches, end-of-term community lunches, the Easter raffle, Easter chocolate sales, and the Father's Day stall. Our efforts this year have raised the money to fund the mural on the outside wall of the canteen and new take-home readers for the lower years. With the help of Jason, we have added the option of joining the PNF meetings via Zoom and have had parents join us who would not have otherwise been available. As some of you may be aware, in 2001, SIWA Incorporated. In line with this, the parents and friends will be changing over from an association to a group under the school. This change also brings the change of the titles for the leadership roles to chair, deputy chair, secretary, and treasurer. These roles will be known as the PNF's committee. The current PNF members have voted to dissolve the current association and reform as a group. The committee roles for next year are Chair Rose, me as Deputy Chair, Secretary Aaron, and Heidi will continue as Treasurer. Thank you for your support over the year.
Hello everyone, my name's Heidi and I'd like to present the Treasurer's Report. Our aim as your PNF is to raise $10,000 each year to contribute to various projects. Anything above that amount is just gravy. You could look at it that we raised $10,000 less compared to 2021. This was partly due to the COVID restrictions, which resulted in the cancellation of our very profitable Easter community lunch, Isopop Fridays, and we had one less cake stall. But I'm happy to report that ultimately we did achieve our goal and we will be making the 10,000 plus contribution. Some highlights for the year, including our Cadbury chocolate boxes, which together with our Easter raffle raised almost $4,000. The Colour-a-thon, which raised over $3,500. Our Quick Click canteen income is up to 15 plus thousand, with pizza lunches being especially popular. Recycling income has reduced as we no longer create our own recycling, as we're not providing juice boxes with lunches. But our running tally since starting the program is at $673, which we wouldn't have already had. And we encourage all families to contribute their own cash for cans on the school's behalf. The Sports Carnival, we had a change of pace from Subway, and this year we went with sushi and still raised a healthy $156. We had a new DJ and a photo booth at the disco, which proved very popular with the kids. Our costs of only $400 odd were mitigated by the sausage sizzle and the coffee van donation. This was our second year of charging $10 per family sofa P&F levy, and these funds in turn paid for our audit costs of our 2021 financials, our annual fee to the Catholic School Parents West Australian Incorporated, and incidentals like our Canva subscription, so we can do all those lovely posts onto Facebook. We started with an opening balance on the 23rd November last year of $17,226. We had income of $40,080, expenditure of $37,585, which left us with a closing balance of $19,720. However, we are yet to make our contribution to the Decodable Readers, which Mrs. Bowden only just mentioned at our recent meeting. So, and we will be making a 10,000 contribution towards the mural. So our adjusted year-end balance will be $7,520, which leaves us in good stead to pay for the Family Fun Night 2023. Crossing fingers, no global pandemics. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Heidi. Thanks, Stephanie. And they're the people that held positions on the PNF this year. And as Stephanie said, that's being dissolved and moved to a PNF Group Committee 2023. Before I finish off today or hand back to Tony, can I make a very public and sincere apology to Jody? I just complete oversight, no intention at all. Jody is also remaining on staff for those people. I have missed her off the staffing list, which she's just pointed out to me. So my apologies to everyone, especially Jody. I will buy you a coffee tomorrow, Jody. I think that's the least I could do. So Jody, Mrs. Dux will be continuing with Mini Lit, so she'll be running part of that intervention program in the juniors, as well as supporting student support with Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Hubkova, and Mrs. Baker next year. So my apologies, Jody. Very, very sorry. That wasn't, Mr. Baker's just, I've got nothing to say to that besides I stuffed up. And I'll hand back to Tony to close off the meeting.
Okay, for the third time, guys, thank you so much for coming this evening. It really is appreciated. It's nice to see so many people out there giving us, just making us feel like we're performing our role, and we do that for the benefit of the children in the school. And I've been connected to the school for a long, long time. I've got a granddaughter here now, and I don't think I'd want it to be anywhere else. And that's thanks to you guys. So thank you so much. I do wish she'd attend school a lot more than she does, because she's not the best attending student. But look, hopefully that will improve. Yeah, but thank you so much, guys, for coming, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And it's still daylight. First time we've been able to say that after one of these meetings. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks very much.